Guys, third time lucky. For those of you watching live, we've had 2 attempts at getting this show on the road tonight. It happened as planned, but I'm just looking and it does appear we are finally up and running. Now, we had some bizarre technical difficulties in the last attempted stream. Technical difficulties which featured a silent Ingram Jones. It featured people who didn't expect to be on the podcast appearing on the podcast in full screen, high definition. I can only apologise. I don't know what's really going on. I'm at a loss. I'm very, very ill. I'm physically, mentally, emotionally broken. But we're gonna start again. And for you guys in the chat, my apologies, but you're going to have to bear with us for 2 minutes because we're going to go over the old things that we did in the last stream. The last stream was live for 5 minutes. So we'll go through at a quicker pace, but the brief shout out is thanks very much to everyone for the support on last week's podcast. If you've been watching live, this is the 3rd time I'm thanking you. But basically, the last podcast got 3,700 views and 200 people taking the time to click the thumbs up button. So massive shout out to everyone who supported and who got involved in the podcast. Let's move on, and we'll move on to Jet. Jet, you already gave us a brief run through, but obviously this is going to be recorded and uploaded later, and a lot of people will watch it after it's gone up, mate. So if you wouldn't mind going over your thoughts again, give us the breakdown on Frankie Gavin versus Sam Eggington.
Yeah, I'll do a quick one. Obviously, we've had a few technical difficulties, more than a few, but yeah, I mean, Gavin was, as I said, I thought he was well in the fight. You know, Sam Eggington was kind of just coming forward, just trying to pour the pressure on. But Gavin, you know, when he was ducking, bobbing, weaving, you know, he stood his ground at times. He was catching Eggington with a lot of shots. Obviously, he didn't have power. He didn't have much power, and he wasn't really, you know, knocking Sam Eggington backwards. He wasn't pushing him back, but you know, he was definitely in the fight. You know, so I know some of the scorecards had it level, or you know, or whatever, but it is what it is. And I think, you know, Gavin, as I said before, he really needs to move down to 140. He's talked about it in his the post-fight IFL TV interview. Could he make 140? You know, I think us three are you know, unanimous in probably saying that he should be moving down to 135, not just 140. Could he make it? Obviously, he missed the welterweight limit. It's tough to see it. He looked bad at 147. Sorry. So yeah, I don't know. I really don't know with Frankie Gavin. Sam Eggington, is he? As I said, probably fringe Euro level. He's not anything above sort of European, you know, even though the guys, they're beatable. Are they beatable for someone like, you know, Sam Eggington and his style? I don't know, you know, maybe even a old, very, you know, shop-worn version of Paulie Malignaggi might be able to beat him and box him. So, you know, it is what it is with Sam Eggington. We know what we're going to get. He might be able to improve if he, you know, kind of works on his fundamentals. But ultimately, I think he's going to be the same sort of fighter. You know, he's going to try and use his height advantage and, you know, use just sort of sheer force and brute force and come, you know, try and steamroll opponents. I don't think that's going to work when you get to, you know, the upper levels of the sport, especially at 147 with the top fighters there, that, you know, that are there in the weight class. Also, good weight, sorry, a good fight they made in including a potential opponent that Eggington was going to face as well. So I think we'll talk about that later in the show. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that. Wait, Gossip's on mute?
Gossip's on mute.
Oh, great.
Can you hear me now, guys?
Yeah.
Oh, dear, oh dear. It's not my night, is it? But yeah.
It's not our night.
Let's, you know, it was a fight that we all, you know, I think we all got the prediction wrong. I think we all picked Frankie Gavin. But I don't think any of us could have predicted the fight to have broken down in the manner with which it did. And to be fair, shout out to Paul. Paul actually was the one who picked the fight right. And had he been on the podcast panel tonight, because unfortunately Paul and Suri can't make it, had he been on the podcast panel, I would have been asking him, did he expect the fight to break down in that manner? Because, I could not see the fight developing into a scrap of that nature. Tom, it's been half an hour, mate. We haven't heard from you yet. Let's finally bring you on. How you doing?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Very, very embarrassed about picking. I think that's definitely the worst call I've made in any of the podcasts so far. I was watching it, and after in the third round, I was like, "Oh Christ!" And I went on to Betfair. I was trying to get onto Betfair to lay off my bet, and by the time my mouse is having a nightmare on my computer. The mouse is now working right, so it double clicks instead of single clicks on me. So by the time I actually got into Betfair, the fight Frankie had just been knocked out, so I lost my money. No, I don't know. I think gossip, it's one of those ones. Like when I was talking last week or a few weeks ago, when you're asking what did I think about Linares versus Crolla beforehand, and I was like, it's one of those where if Linares is if he's injured and back is healed and he's back to form, he wins, and if he's not, he doesn't. And I think with this one with Frankie Gavin, it was kind of similar one. Frankie was out for a year. If he was living the life, I thought he looked like his skin was clear. But he came in overweight, and one thing that happened in that thing.
What did you make of that? Was that him being lazy, or was that to do with the British Boxing Board of Control?
Look, if you're trying to make weight with the British Boxing Board of Control and you've got a fight and they've changed the regulations, you should know the regulations. To me, it's just like, that's a mess up by the fighter. And it doesn't matter if the regulations were a different way a year ago. He'll be let know. I don't believe that was just like the board being assholes or anything. I think that's Frankie Gavin not doing it the right way. Thought he might get away with it. Look, Frankie, when he was boxing, he was clearly winning. I don't know what the Sky. I always end up going with these Sky commentators, but I had it at the time at the stoppage. I had Frankie 1 point up. I had him winning all the rounds that he wasn't knocked down in. I can see a case for Frankie losing the first round. It was quite a close round, so it could have been 1 up or 1 down. The run where he got knocked down in the first round. You can make a case that for being 9-8 because he came back and he totally dominated the second half of that fight round, and he really was all over Eggington. So you could make a case that I didn't. I would have given it 10-8 to Eggington, but I don't know. I think I'm not going to say so far as the fix was in, but the favored fighter from Sky's point of view, I think, regardless of all the good comments that were given Frankie in the fight. Just look at those scorecards. How can Matthew Macklin be talking up Frankie Gavin and then having him four rounds down after that? Sense to me, it was just complete horseshit. I don't understand those cards. But I think with Frankie, the thing that happened with Frankie was once he had his back to the ropes, he was in a terrible position. And it's not that hard. When somebody gets you in the rope, it's not like he had him in the corner and he was leaning on him. It's not that hard for somebody like Frankie to spin left or spin right and get out and get back to the center of the ring. So to me, it just must mean that he didn't have the legs under him. He didn't feel like he was going to be able to constantly be moving on his feet for 12 rounds. Because if he hadn't have gone to the ropes, the only time Eggington, apart from when he knocked him down with the straight right, but it was a clean shot, but it wasn't a heavy shot. The only time he had him in trouble was on the ropes. I don't know. It was a very strange fight for me. And it was a good fight. But I think Frankie, I don't think Frankie will ever amount to anything now, which is a disappointment.
Yeah. I mean, do you think it's too late for him in his career to start trying to suck down and make the lower weight classes when he hasn't been used to doing it? Well,
he's 31. I didn't know he was that old. I actually thought he was 29 or something like that. He's 31. Why? Jesus. He's not even making 147. You know what I mean? If he's not able to make 147, how do we think he's going to make 135? I think with a guy like Frankie, I just don't think. I don't know. Maybe he. Sometimes you got these fighters and they're very good, but they don't enjoy boxing. You know.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just easy money for him. Maybe he just likes going drinking and eating, and knows he can earn some money if he just stays reasonably fit. You know, I'm not gonna shit in a guy for like trying to make money on a thing like that, but it's definitely a case of unfulfilled potential. And the other thing is, I thought Eggington fought well. I think that we've got to give Eggington credit because he didn't like. He fought quite conservatively. You know, he didn't waste his punches. He did allow him to land about 5 clean shots on his head for fucking no reason. But like he overreached a little bit in some of the earlier rounds. I think with his jab. I can't remember. He was caught. Frankie caught him off balance, overreaching a few times. Then he was quite conservative with his foot movement, and he wasn't just rushing in. I thought he stalked him quite well. And I know, like, I've heard other people saying this, but to me it kind of was like a poor quality Cotto versus Margarito. It was nearly the same fight, you know what I mean? You had one guy that was obviously boxing dominant and was doing good combinations and every type of uppercut, cross, hook, you name it, he was landing. And the other guy was just kind of relentless and walking them down. And, fitness matters, size matters, and the best man won. And if it was in the morning, I don't think Frankie Gavin will. I don't think he's that interested in it, and I don't think he'll ever come back to a level that's higher than British level.
Yeah. And what about Eggington after this fight? How high do you see his potential upside?
Well, it's a strange one because he's only 23, and I don't know how extensive his amateur background is. I don't think it's that much.
No.
And I, to be honest with you, there was big improvements there this time versus his fight against Skeet. So, like, I think, a guy like him who's got heart and has got a great engine, like, to see the bags under his eyes, he looks like he probably sleeps about 2 hours a night, and he's probably such like a dynamo. He probably gets away with it. Like he showed improvements, and I could see him actually becoming, if he keeps improving, like you could see him becoming some type of a Margarito type fighter. Not to say he'll ever get to that level, but I'd say if you saw early Margarito, I can imagine he was quite crude too.
Yeah, definitely. Does this fight make Bradley Skeet look particularly good?
I don't think so. I think the fighter that's in, like the Eggington, that's in this, that was in that fight was a better Eggington than it was against Bradley Skeet. Yeah, and I think Gavin was a lot worse than when he fought Eggington, when he fought Skeet. So it's hard to know what this actually means for the two of them. I still would take. Well, the thing is, Bradley Skeet is taller than Frankie Gavin. He's a proper 147 fighter. Yeah. So the physical advantages that Eggington has over Gavin, he doesn't have over Skeet. And then it becomes more of a boxing fight. But I wouldn't mind seeing a rematch with Skeet. I think that could be good. With Skeet and Eggington. Right. I wouldn't mind seeing it. Like, maybe a couple of years down the line or whatever. But you could imagine that could be a closer fight the second time round. But like, fair play to Eggington. He's 23 and he's on the up. And I'd like to see him. It was a great fight. It was very entertaining. Like, it really was entertaining. Really just a good fight. But very disappointed in Frankie Gavin. When I saw him in the fight and he was turning sideways, you could see, like, when you see Eggington sideways, he's so narrow at his abs. Like, he's ripped, There's nothing there. And when Gavin was side on sometimes, he looked like he had a beer belly. I don't know. Like, and he's weak to The one thing we've got to say about Frankie, though, Frankie's got fight in him, and he certainly didn't go down easy, and he gave it everything he had. So, just good fight. And I must say that all of us, apart from Paul, we all have Eggington on our face.
Good one. Yeah, I want to come to you, and I want to touch on a point that Tom actually raised, because I think it's interesting. So Tom said at the time of the stoppage, he had Gavin 1 point up. I think I had Eggington 1 point up. But regardless, we're painting the picture that we had it a very, very close fight. Now, the Sky commentators, and I'm not sure how big the margins they had it, but the Sky commentators had Eggington very, very substantially up. And I believe in the context of a 7 or 8 round fight, they had Eggington 4 or 5 rounds up, if memory serves. What I'm interested to know, Jet, is what's your take on that? What is your take on how the fight should have been scored up to the point of the stoppage?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all had a close fight. I'd probably go back and watch it again. At the time, I think I had Gavin probably 1 up. I gave him all around that, that he didn't get knocked down in. So, and point that, one of the rounds that he got knocked down and he was 9-8, he could have won that round 9-8 because he came very, very strongly in the sort of second half of the round. But yeah, I mean, the scoring is abysmal on Sky, in Britain, but especially on Sky. And I think Macklin had Eggington winning by 4. Someone else, I can't remember who it was, had Spencer Oliver maybe had, Gavin losing by 5. So I mean, 4 and 5 rounds respectively. That is, I don't know what they're watching, because Gavin was getting off the cleaner work. His work sort of had not more snap, but he would catch Eggington more regularly. He looked the more eye catching, even though he wasn't hurting Eggington. And I think just the crisper work it was coming from Gavin. Eggington was coming forward, he was throwing punches, but a lot of them, Frankie was kind of moving and avoiding, and he had his hands up. They were kind of arm punches that Eggington was throwing. So I don't know. I don't know what people, everyone else thought about it, but I don't think that scorecard was representative of, the fight. The fight was a close fight. It was very neck and neck, and if Frankie Gavin could come in disciplined, maybe at 147, you never know. He could win the fight, but for me, just he doesn't make weight properly. He's fighting in the wrong weight class, and maybe he has a bit of a a heart issue. Is his heart really in it? Does he really want it at the end of the day? And I don't think he does. Doesn't look like it, at least.
Yeah, I mean, Frankie's come out on Twitter today on his verified account and says that he knows he's got to make 140, but it's hard to start making 140 when you're, in your 30s and you've been used to fighting at a higher weight class. So, it would be interesting to see what route he goes down. But one thing I can say is that from my perspective, I'm more interested in seeing Frankie fight again after that fight. He's always been a fighter I've associated with quite dull jab fights, and at least that fight was highly entertaining, and he showed a lot of talent in there. He showed an excellent punch selection, good reactions, and some real skill. So I'm more interested in seeing him again, but I think he needs to make 140, but I'm dubious as to how successful it's going to be. It may be too little too late, unfortunately. I completely agree. I thought the Sky commentary was very, very poor, and I thought to have the fight that wide was farcical. I think Gavin was clearly winning the rounds, except for the rounds he got knocked down in. We're going to talk about scoring again in the Agogo fight, because I think that's even more bizarre. But before we do, let's chat Agogo. As you guys know, I made my live commentary debut on the channel for Anthony Agogo, which we'll be doing again. So I didn't actually see the Sky commentary live for that, so I was busy doing it on my own laptop. But let's talk about the fight. Jet, let's start with you. What was your take on Agogo Cunningham?
Yeah, showed a lack of skill, showed a lack of heart. I mean, actually, I don't know. I wouldn't say so much heart, because he could. Apparently, he had a broken eye socket before he went into the fight. I don't know if that's true, but I think if not, then he broke his eye socket in the Craig Cunningham done his ice hockey in the first round. So, you know, he did show a bit of heart, I guess, you know, taking the sort of punishment he did. But, you know, in terms of skills-wise, off balance, you know, obviously that might be due to the injury, but showed a complete, you know, I don't know. It was a fall from grace for him, if I put it nicely. He you know, he could have, you know, boxed Craig Cunningham. If he could have made Craig Cunningham come forward or stood the center of the ring. Everything Ogogo did, it did not work. And Craig Cunningham made him look worse than an amateur. He made him look like a, you know, a sort of guy who's just stepped into a ring for the first or second time. And, you know, Craig Cunningham looked flabby at the weight as well. He's not a 160 guy. He's a 154 guy who has no punching power, and he was consistently hurting Agogo. It does not make good viewing for Agogo going down the line. I think Agogo is really, you know, I think we spoke about it on Twitter. I'm not sure Irish Tom's view on it, but we'll get to that in a minute. I said, you know, he could be even just above a journeyman level. I mean, Southern area level is, you know, maybe being generous. You know, some journeyman, some tricky, you know, awkward journeyman. Like, obviously, at middleweight, I'd have to kind of research it. But, you know, maybe if you take a Jason Gavin or someone like that, they'd be tricky outings for someone like Agogo. And, you know, I don't know. I can't see him progressing past English level, if I'm honest.
Yeah. I mean, the performance was woeful. The balance, it was one of the worst displays of balance I've seen in a boxing ring. Full stop. The idea that he went into the ring with a broken eye socket is ludicrous. I mean, either that's a stupid lie or his corner need to be sacked for allowing him to make a decision like that. Who goes into a fight with a broken eye socket?
The scoring was embarrassing as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll come to the scoring, but the corner was so poor. I mean, Agogo was doing such terrible things in there. Yeah, he was just missing with that jab consistently. Every time he threw it, he missed. And they never gave him they never got him to change. You know, there was no plan B, there was no versatility. It was the same thing that was failing round after round after round. And he looked terrible. I was commentating live. I had, after 8 rounds, I think I had Agogo up by 4, and then there was the knockdown as well. So I had Cunningham up by 4, and then there was the knockdown. So I had Cunningham clear by miles. Now, to my horror, I found out that the judges had it even after 8. You know, at the time of the stoppage. So, could you make a case that this was an even fight? I mean, if you factor in the knockdown, could you make a case that Anthony Agogo was winning more rounds than Cunningham?
No chance, mate. I saw your commentary after it was uploaded. I was at work, so yeah, good stuff. I enjoyed that after, but yeah, it was embarrassing, just as bad as like the Ray Beltran Ricky Burns fight. You know, that is absolute horror to me, and those judges need the sack. I'll be honest, it's a joke. You know, I had. You could give a case maybe for Ogogo winning 1 round, that if you're just being generous, but I'll be honest, I didn't give him any rounds. I think Craig Cunningham won all the rounds, like all of them. I just could not give Ogogo any rounds, and you know the knockdowns made it worse. So it went 8 rounds plus, you know, 2 or 3 knockdowns. He's winning the fight by a landslide for me, even though probably yourself.
Yeah, you're spot on, mate. You're spot on. And let's not forget, like, just because the fight ended in stoppage, let's not forget those scorecards, because Craig Cunningham was losing that fight.
He's going to get robbed. I'm telling you that 100% he was going to get robbed, and that's the overriding sort of thing, a theme in British boxing now. I mean, it's so bad. You know, that sort of the underdog. He fights out of his skin, and he's, you know, en route to getting robbed. It's embarrassing. It's you know, the judges need to have a good, long, hard look in the mirror and go, you know, obviously they're getting paid off. They must be, or you know, or maybe not. But they got to look in the mirror and go, you know, how if we watch that on YouTube the next day, how are we actually going to score it? Are we actually going to score it a change their mind? Because there was no way that fight was close by any stretch of the imagination. Craig Cunningham was winning that fight by miles for me, you know, it was a travesty that it was that close. It's embarrassing for UK boxing. Embarrassing.
Yeah, I think even though the fight didn't go to the scorecards, taking that to one side, I think this is one of the worst scorings of fights that I've seen in recent years. For me, it's worse than Crolla Linares, Ryder Armfield. It's worse than Burns Relic. For me, this is about as bad as it gets. Tom, let's go over to you, mate. Your take on the Agogo Cunningham fight.
Jesus, I never thought I'd say this, but I felt sorry for Ogogo. You know, I feel like we're bullying him now. You know, I think, you know, what can I say about Ogogo? There's so much to say. Like, I think before he got it, like, well, there's so much to say. I think before he got his eye socket broken, which he says was in the first round, you know, he still doesn't look any good. I still think he looks poor. And you could see that his footwork and his timing were all over the place. He was throwing out jabs, and they were falling a foot or two short, you know. So, like, I assume that's got to do with his eye and not being able to focus right. But, you know, I suppose they do affect people in different ways. It didn't affect Kell Brook the same way. I would say that, I don't know what, like when he went to the corner and he was telling Tony Sims, like, his eye was bad, he wanted to be quit. It looked like Tony Sims didn't even know there was something wrong with his eye. Get that?
Yeah, well, what's worse is the Tony. Sorry, Gossip. You can go if you want.
No, you go, Jet. You go.
Yeah, I mean, what's worse is if he's telling him the eye obviously is badly hurt. You know, Tony should take responsibility and should pull him out. You know, earlier, not in the 8th round. So he's letting, you know, his fighter, you know, potentially can improve. Or obviously, in hindsight, maybe not, but you know, could potentially improve. He's letting him take unnecessary punishment. You know, that's bad corner work. Very bad corner work.
I'm telling you, it looked like there was next to no camaraderie between his corner, him and Tony Sims. They look like strangers to each other. I don't know if he's training with him the whole time, but you know, he didn't. You know, and the slag Tony Sims don't know him at all, but it didn't look. I don't know how you could know your fighter and not know something is badly wrong. It's just a bit unusual to me. But I don't think you can say about Ogogo. I thought he showed, if he did have a cracked eye socket, and I believe him, but I think he, you know, to go 8 rounds with it probably shows a bit of heart. I don't think he's any good anyway. You know, he got, you know, it's hard to know, like, because the other guy's a light middle, but the other guy was clearly a more skilled fighter. You know, this guy that none of us had seen before, who's 16-1 and a light middleweight and is a Midlands area champion, was clearly, to me, outskilled Anthony Ogogo. Anthony Ogogo, to me, looks, it's so hard. I don't want to be too down on the guy now because he hasn't been on his Twitter account. I just had a check there. Like, I'm sure he's super depressed, but it's hard to believe he was an Olympic medalist, because I'd say he must be, you know, sometimes fellas have their styles when they go to the pros that are Olympic. They have like pity-patty styles and maybe they don't translate, but he doesn't even have that. He looks like bereft of boxing education.
You're spot on. I mean, it was as woeful a performance as it could be. What about Craig Cunningham, Tom? Do you think he has got the potential to actually go somewhere in the sport and to be in decent fights, or do you think he just came up against an easy mark?
He's definitely got the ability, looking at that, you would think, to win a light middleweight British title, you know, and see where you go from there. He's got decent boxing skills. You've got to say that. Like, one thing I think he was saying is that in the first round, I don't know, was him interviewed, and he was saying like that he wanted to spend the first round just like feeling out Anthony Ogogo and see how the speed was like. And he said he was really surprised because he thought he was as fast as Anthony Ogogo. So, like, if he's matching Ogogo for speed before his stuff, if his eye was gone, you know, I think he looks quite skillful to me. So, and is he southpaw?
Yes,
I think he is southpaw. So, you know, that's always an advantage. So, you know, I think he could definitely win a British title. But like Anthony Ogogo mightn't even be British level. I think Anthony Ogogo is actually probably not British level, to be honest. I think if you had Sam Langford in there, or Tommy Langford in there, been fairly easy against him. I don't know what anybody else thinks.
Yeah, I think the likes of Tommy Langford, Spike O'Sullivan, even like sort of the likes of Jack Arnfield, I'd pick as big favourites over him at this stage.
So what are we going to do, boys, if you've got no Ogogo news? Who are we going to do from now on?
We're going to need a new fighter, aren't we? It's going to be Joe Joyce when he turns pro.
Why Joe Joyce?
Because there's already casual fans out there proclaiming him as the greatest fighter of all time.
Oh dear! But like the problem is that it's not so much. That's not too bad. It's like, you know, it's more that Anthony Agogo talked about being remembered like Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler. Like, to me, you know, you can't blame a guy if he gets the casuals on him. You know, the fact is with Gogo, he talks such nonsense.
Imagine Spike was in there on the night. Spike would have seriously hurt him. Like, he would have left him badly injured. Like, you know, he's lucky the guy is not a big puncher, even though he was getting hurt.
I just felt sorry for Agogo. With all the piss taking we were doing, we all thought he would at least get to British level.
Yeah.
And now he's not even getting there. And I feel like, I do feel sorry for the poor bastard.
I'll tell you what, though, imagine if he hadn't had that eye injury and the judges had given it to him. Imagine what we'd be saying now.
I think the eye injury, like, in fairness, I don't think his footwork is that bad. You know, like, I think the eye injury, but it took a lot out of him.
How could he have won that fight?
Oh, yeah, like, you know, like, Jet says, like, oh, these judges need to be fired. It's like, screw that. Like, it's not the judges is the problem. You know, it's the promoters is the problem. Let's get it straight.
Yeah, but he's not even promoted by Matchroom. He's
promoted by Sauerland. Sauerland can pay off people just as well as
Golden Boy as well.
Yeah, but Sauerland.
I don't know.
You know, the home fight, like, you know, it's the promoters that do this. It's not the judges. The judges don't just, you know, maybe they decided, oh, I'll do a crazy card and gamble on the opposite side. But like, the history of the sport is promoters paying judges. You know, that's the history of the sport. And, you know, every time there's a bad card, it's not the judging we need to be complaining about. It's the promoters we need to be complaining about. You know, that's the way I look at it anyway.
Interesting stuff. You know, well, let's move. Usually the phrase is from the sublime to the ridiculous. This week we're going to go from the ridiculous to the sublime. And we're going to talk about a fight that happened on Friday night. Dave Ryan versus Josh Taylor. Now, credit to Irish Tom. I think Irish Tom had actually called out Josh Taylor's name the week previously and said that he was definitely one to watch. So, Irish, we'll start with you on this. But let me just say, I was bowled over, mate. I thought we were watching one of the sort of best prospects that I've seen for some time.
Yeah, like I after watching it, I was thinking to myself, I was saying, like, you know, I consider Anthony Joshua still a prospect because he's fought nobody. But like, is he as good a prospect as Anthony Joshua? You know what I mean? Like, is he the best?
Yeah.
Like in the British boxing, the three best prospects I can think of, I'm going to consider Anthony Joshua, I think Hughie Fury, and I think Josh. What's his name again?
Josh Taylor.
Josh Taylor. Like, I think he looks
like O'Hara Davies.
Yeah, definitely. O'Hara Davies hasn't done what he's done so far. Like, Dave Ryan is a bit of an animal. We all know Dave Ryan. He's been in great tear-ups. You know, he's a really hard guy, and he's the type of guy, he's kind of a bit like an Eggington. You just don't want to be in against him because he'll take a lot of punishment and he'll keep coming at you. And like Josh Taylor, he systematically broke him down. I was so impressed. Like, he nearly broke him down similarly, not as good, but nearly as good as Spence did to Algieri. To Spence to Algieri. Now, I know Algieri is a level above Dave Ryan, but it was still incredibly impressive for a guy who was only on his 7th fight. You know, he's got great hand speed. And, you know, he has that kind of thing that you see only the best fighters do. Is that, you know, a fella is throwing a punch and halfway through the punch, he can change it into a different punch. Like if the guy is like changing if the defensive guy has changed his movement somewhat, he'll turn his jab into a hook, or he'll turn his hook into an uppercut, or he'll do something like. And only the top fighters I've seen tend to do that. He's got deceptive speed, and like he's got great work into the body. Him and Spence work the body, and Golovkin. I love to see the body work. Love to see it. I think he got hit a little bit. That's the only thing I'd say. I do think that Dave Ryan got him a bit, but we'll see as he moves up the rungs. But to me, I think he's top 3 British prospects, and you can nearly go so far as to say that if Bud Crawford, Terence Crawford goes up to 147, you could see him unifying the 140 division. I think he looks that good.
He had everything. That's what I like to see in prospects, is someone really well-rounded. And to me, he had everything. Let me ask you, Tom, just before I go to Jet. Ricky Burns, Tyrone Nurse, shout out to Tyrone Nurse, Ahara Davies, and Josh Taylor. How do you rate them 1 to 4?
If Ricky and Josh were to fight in the morning, I'd take Josh Taylor. Tyrone Nurse... Tyrone is one of those guys with all the skills, but he still ends up in wars, and so people might think, he just kind of lapses into it. But it's one thing having all the skills and being able to implement them. So I think somebody who's got an attack and also skills like him, I think he'd take Tyrone Nurse. Who else do we have? And then Ahara Davies. I think Ahara Davies looks good. So we haven't seen him step up yet. So on the basis of Ward having beaten somebody good, I think what's his name? Josh Taylor. And I'd take Taylor, I think I'd take them over all of them. But I think Ahara Davies is a big unknown, because he could also be a proper talent. But if Ahara Davies is that big a talent, how come Matchroom aren't pushing him? The last time I saw him, they sent him over to Germany to fight on what was that undercard? He fought some
Zoiga Degale undercard.
Yeah, like if they really, I think if Eddie Hearn really thinks one of his talents is going to go the distance, he'll start building and putting them high up on builds, and he hasn't done it with Ahara Davies. So I'll just go Josh Taylor to beat them all. I think he's the best Scottish boxer. He's a mile better talent-wise than Ricky Burns if he can keep his head together and his head down. He's with Shane McGuigan, and I think Shane McGuigan, he's looking like a really good coach. And I think he's with the McGuigans, and I think they've done a good job with Carl Frampton, and I think they'll do a good job with him too. I think, I'm very excited with him. Like, he just looks like a real natural talent, and he's got heavy hands. He's got a style, like, to be honest with you, the type of style I love, a guy with fast hands, power, hits to the body, high output, just a great type of attacking style.
Yeah, I really, really rate him very, very highly. Just as an FYI, Ahara Davies is fighting on the November the 26th bill, I believe, for the WBC silver belt against Andrea Scarpa, who you may remember beat John Wayne Hibbard. So that's a potential interesting fight for Ahara Davies, and that will probably see him moved up in the rankings somewhat. But no, I take your point. And Taylor,
is that bill happening, Tom?
So I'm told, yeah. I think there's a couple of big fights that are on that. Potentially Coyle Wayne Hibbard as well. Jet, do you know if that's definitely happening?
Yeah, they punched that in. I was trying to get tickets for it, so see if I could go to watch it.
This is the one that's in Manchester.
No. It's not in Manchester. It's at Wembley Arena.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that one's on the card. Ahara Scarpa. I think Ted Cheeseman's on the card, a few other prospects on the card. So it's not a massive sort of bumper show, but, it's got some, fairly, sort of domestic sort of scraps on there. So it won't be a bad watch, I guess.
Yeah, no, it could be good. Yeah, let's go over to you, mate. Let's have your take, if I may, on the
Sorry, it froze there.
let's have your take on the Josh Taylor performance, mate.
Oh yeah, mate. Fantastic. I think me and Irish Tom, we recommended you check him out last week when we were talking about it, and yeah, he's a fantastic fighter.
No, Chet, it was just me. It wasn't you.
Oh, okay. I think you wanted to cut me off there, but I mean, no, he's a good fighter, very, very good fighter, talented prospect. Dave Ryan is, as game as they come. He's been in wars, and he systematically took him out, and he hurt Dave Ryan as well. Fifth round sort of stoppage, and he goes on at that sort of level. He's at Commonwealth level. I know Dave Ryan was actually holding the Commonwealth belt before he lost to John Wayne Hibbert. So he on that sort of win, he's at that sort of level. So he has a lot of time. Trainer, he's at a sort of decent weight class where he has opportunities, and he can move up. So yeah, as Tom said, if Crawford moves up, he could probably, I'm pretty sure he can win one of the vacant belts, or he could beat Burns as well. Troyanovsky's not going to come over. I don't think he would go after that belt, but I think he could beat him as well later down the line if he gets some good, world level experience as well. But yeah, I mean, fantastic fighter, really, really good fighter, and he's one to keep an eye on. Same with Andrew Selby. I think everyone knows Andrew Selby. He was on the card as well. I think he was on Spike, I think.
Definitely, yeah. They showed him afterwards. For me, Selby, we know he's a good prospect. He looked quite uneconomical to me. There was lots of wasted movement. He was very bouncy. He just didn't look as instantly smooth as his brother. It was. Don't get me wrong. He was in complete control and very dominant, but he was a bit all over the place. I felt to an extent. I don't know if that's harsh.
Yeah, I mean, well, when he moves up and faces the sort of top of the division, I know it's tough at the sort of lighter weight classes. I know because as you probably and all the boxing fans know, Kaya Fai's got a world title fight as well. May have got that earlier on in his career, but at the sort of lighter weight classes, there isn't much scope for guys fighting each other at a lower level than world level, because there isn't that many of sort of flyweights and minimum weight guys in the weight class itself, because it's obviously the sort of average man. I think we spoke about this a good month or two ago. They're bigger than those guys. So
don't start him off, Jet. Don't start him off again.
Gossip going on the rant, but no, yeah. So it is what it is. I mean, when he faces a top level opponent, I think he'll school some of the top level guys. I know Juan Francisco Estrada moves up to Superfly. I think if he got some good experience, that would be a really good fight for Andrew Selby. John Real Casemiro obviously beat Charlie Edwards recently. I think he could beat Casemiro. Didn't think Casemiro looked as good as other people. I know those people had him ahead. Charlie Edwards quite well in the fight when he got stopped in the 10th. So it wasn't the best performance by Selby, but I still think he's one to look out for, especially at that sort of weight class. I think he can move up and win a world title as well in a different weight class, Superfly or bantamweight, if he moves up as well.
Definitely. Okay, Tom, do you want to have a quick word on the Box Nation show, mate? Did you see any of that?
I did. Yeah, remind me what was on it again.
Paul Butler, Jamie Cox, Luke Blackledge, Leon Woodstock. Is that, yeah.
No, I watched I have heard a lot of people slagging the Jamie Cox fight, and I understand what they mean, but I'm telling you, I enjoyed that fight. I must say, I'm not going to say I don't enjoy a dirty fight when both guys are at it. That was just like a wild, wild fight. I thought it was very exciting. Jamie Cox, he is a strange one. He is. I think Jamie Cox, if he had, if he wasn't so mental, he could go far. But he's just so, he is just such a, I don't know, at home we call him as a dirty knacker. He strikes me as being a dirty knacker. He's beating up women and in fights all the time, and, half Irish and half Welsh. That's got to be a bad mix. I don't know. He just strikes me as someone that just not able to hold his head together. I think Jamie Cox is destined to not to get the big fights, to annoy everybody in the game, to self-destruct. I can't see the man ending up his life not in a prison cell. He's just a maniac. But I find him exciting to watch, and I hope he gets a shot at something because I'd watch it. That was a dirty fight, man. That was a very dirty fight. But I do kind of, when two guys are being dirty to each other, I don't mind it. I don't like it when one guy's just being dirty.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just think it makes it look ridiculous, all the talk of him going in with James Degale or George Groves, the way he fought that fight.
I'm in there with either of them. I think he'd do okay. Like, I can imagine him knocking out George Groves. No hassle, I could imagine him.
Knock out a light middleweight journeyman, mate.
Yeah, did you see that guy? That guy was just absurd. He took Savage. These Argentinian boys, they're made out of different stuff than the rest of us. I don't know. There must be like some genetic mutations in Argentina where their chins are just fucking, I don't know, sculpted onto their skull all in one piece, mono chin. Like, he was tough as nails. And I can imagine him really annoying somebody like Jamie Cox. That's the thing. Like, he was kissing him on the neck and doing everything. You can imagine what the hell he was saying to him. Like, any other fighter sees that, they know exactly what to do with Jamie Cox just to drive him wild. If he goes and he gets a world title shot against, let's imagine, George Groves or something. George Groves will know how to wind him up, and he'll get him disqualified because George Groves will be the A-sider. Simple as that. The only reason he didn't get disqualified in that because he was the A-sider, he was a headline act in that thing. He'd be gone. The last fight I saw that somebody got thrown out of was probably the Stephen Ormond one against Terry Flanagan. And this was 100 times worse than that. But I did enjoy the fight. I'm not going to deny it. I thought it was great. But who else was there on the card? I watched some of the under cards. Zelfa Barrett I watched. Did you see him?
Yeah, it was over before it began, wasn't it?
Yeah. I wonder, he's got a fairly decent starter record now. But there's a lot of these guys Frank has now on these levels that they need to be starting to be pushed up, I think, towards British level and that, because they're fighting just kind of journeyman stuff. But anything else was on that? No.
About Paul Butler.
Yeah, Paul Butler, I thought he was quite good. I thought the guy who was in against him was actually quite good. He was only 12-2 in his record, but he had some good skills. And Paul Butler did really well. He probably won every single round, showed good movement. I don't know what Jet has got against Paul Butler, because I thought Paul Butler is handy at that weight. Him and McDonald is a decent fight. I wouldn't mind seeing that happen.
McDonald school.
I don't know how much he schools him, Jet.
He schooled.
I think
no.
You're just.
I just don't rate him. It's like how anyone else doesn't rate someone. I just think for all the hype he gets, he's not anything special. He's a decent fighter at a certain level, but he's not like this sort of top British sort of fighter. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
He's well above British level, though. I think.
No, in, prospect-wise, I mean, loads of people saying, "Oh, well, he's fantastic fighter and that sort of stuff." I mean, he's okay. He beat some guys. I think, Lee Haskins, he didn't look great in his last fight. That could be a winnable fight for him, even though I said last week that's not a winnable fight. That's probably a winnable fight. I just think McDonald is by far and beyond, one of the best in his weight class, and I think he will absolutely school Paul Butler. Obviously, he's lost to Tete, who's in the weight class as well. There's a few others that he might lose to. Kamida's pretty decent.
If you look at Kamida is not really a boxer. Kamida's more of a puncher. And McDonald's boxed the puncher. So I think Paul Butler is a much better boxer than Kamida. He might hit as hard or whatever, but he can box. So I think that'd be more of a tactical fight. So maybe McDonald will school him and win 10-2, but I don't see it like that. I think you're being a bit harsh on him from my point of view anyway. I remember watching Gossip about a year or two ago, and you were saying you rated him as one of your top British fighters at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was before the Zolani Tete fight, but I do believe he really has got a very high potential, Butler, yeah. I don't see gaping flaws in his game, to be honest. I think he's a very, very good fighter. I just think, Tete was a elite pound-for-pound fighter, and I don't think Butler is that yet.
No, I don't think he's elite pound for pound, but sure, who is in the English? Like,
Exactly.
who is the British?
Yeah.
There's only ever going to be 3 or 4 British fighters at any one time that you could say would have a case for the top 20 pound for pound. But like, he's got a good chance of winning a world title. He's like, I think BoxRec have him at like 28 in the world. You could easily see him getting to the top 10 bantamweights. That's the way I look at him. And then, he might win a title again and hold it for a while. And I wouldn't mind seeing him fight Jamie McDonald, although, those fights will never, ever happen because of the Cold War. But, it's I think he's a decent fighter. I think he's probably in the olden days, he'd be a European level, when there was only one European champion and all of these Mickey Mouse belts all over the place. You'd call him like European level with a chance at world honours. That's the way I class him.
And just a word on Luke Blackledge. We understand he's going to fight Callum Smith next. Who's excited to see Blackledge versus Callum Smith after that?
Jesus Christ. Callum Smith. When is Callum Smith going to do something decent? I was watching, I don't know if I'm skipping now, but James Degale and was interviewed in IFL. I don't know if anybody saw him.
Yes, I saw it.
About, like, fighting Callum Smith. Like, what's Callum Smith going to do before he prepares? He's probably going to be facing the unified champion.
He's fighting Luke Blackledge, mate, for the British. Luke
Blackledge nearly got knocked out by a journeyman. Although that guy did look like, I don't know, I didn't know his record, but he looked stocky as hell. So I can imagine.
52.
Sorry, say again?
7 wins, 52 losses.
My God, that low, yeah. Well, I suppose anybody can get caught once, so I didn't actually watch all that fight. I only watched a little bit of it. But, like Callum Smith,
Important though, is it? I thought he looked like the worst fighter in there. I know the other guy ran out of gas. Elvis, I think was his name. But I actually thought he looked like the smoother fighter in there.
Yeah, well, it's very hard to fight and sing at the same time. So you can only usually last around 5 rounds.
Yeah.
Elvis. His name is Elvis, Tom.
Elvis, yeah. I'm with you. Sorry, I'm a bit slow tonight. I'm still recovering from my nightmare earlier. Jet, let's go over to you, mate. Have you got anything to add on the Box Nation card before we move on, mate?
Not much. Jamie Cox, I don't really see the hype around him. He's okay, but I don't know, against this sort of level. But that was a very, very bad sort of dirty fight. But going up the levels, can he? Everyone's saying he's this massive puncher, and some people are saying on the forums that he's probably the best 168 fighter out there. Don't think that's true, but I guess we'll wait and see. He's an eccentric character, so I guess that's something decent. We spoke about Paul Butler. Woodstock looks decent. I think you said he looks similar to sort of a Chris Eubank Jr., super featherweight Chris Eubank Jr. I think you're spot on with that one. Who else was on the card? I think that was it, wasn't it? There wasn't really.
Yeah, those were the sort of standout names, definitely. But we can move on to the news stories. I mean, we've talked about last week's boxing for a fair amount of time. So let's start with, and we'll start with you, Jet, on this one. I guess the obvious piece of news to start with is this bizarre story that Vladimir Klitschko has picked up an injury, won't be fighting in 2016, but will be fighting in 2017. We should now buy into the fact that Joshua versus Klitschko is going to happen spring 2017. Do you think that story has any weight whatsoever?
Nothing. There's nothing behind that at all. I mean, I think me and you are probably the only guys that called that, that the fight is definitely not going to happen. And, the fight was definitely not going to happen whatsoever. They said November 26th. They changed the date, December 10th. And, it's just... let's put it this way. Vladimir Klitschko is never going to take a fight 6 to 8 months in advance. He's a control freak in negotiations. There's no chance he's ever going to take a fight in that sort of thing. Certain next fight lined up. He was supposed to fight, there was heavy rumours that he's supposed to face Lucas Brown, and I think that fight was probably going to happen December 10th. There was a rumour that Lucas Brown had already sorted out, his purse. That was probably going to be $1 million, something like that, or $1 million, and he was going to get a good purse out of that, fighting for one of the versions of a WBA title. And as we said last week, no organisation will put up a vacant title in a unification fight, to make the fight. That never happens. I've never heard that happen. And obviously now you have in the WBA situation, Briggs, Hay. Hay's obviously got his sort of thing with the WBO with the Parker Ruiz. He faces the winner in 120 days. So it's all a bit of a mess. I mean, is he really injured? Do we know if he's really injured? We've heard he has another calf injury. He had a calf injury, if I'm correct, when he pulled out of the Tyson Fury fight first time around. If I'm correct in saying that. So it's father time catching up with Vladimir Klitschko. He's 41 now, I think. So people are going to say, well, Joshua faces him, and is he shot? Is he done? It's a lose-lose for Joshua at the end of the day. I don't think him beating Klitschko is going to make any sort of difference. People are going to always make excuses. If people have done it for Tyson Fury, people are going to do it for Anthony Joshua. So I think, it's all a mess in the heavyweight division at the moment. And, I'm actually waiting for the Gypsy King to return.
And yeah, we're about 6 weeks away from fight night now. Still no opponent announced. The talk seems to be surrounding 3 names: Price, Molina, and Jennings. Now, I've always thought Jennings is a complete red herring because he's not in the IBF top 15. So, frankly, he's got as much chance of fighting Joshua as you or I. I don't understand how Jennings could even be considered as an opponent. So I think it's between Molina and Price. And I'm inclined to think they'll go down the Price route because of marketability. But where do you stand? Out of those 3, who do you think is the most interesting, and which route do you think it will go down?
Well, Jennings would obviously be the most interesting, but as we know, and as you said earlier, he's not in the IBF top 15. So, unless the IBF, follow suit with some sort of dodgy, they put him in the rankings, kind of how they've done with other fighters. Chris Arreola, I think, going to WBC all of a sudden to face Deontay Wilder. So, it happens, so it could happen. But Jennings, as of now, is not going to come over 6 weeks notice. He's coming off 2 back-to-back losses. He's got, not a lot of momentum in his career as well. So, I'm inclined to put Jennings out of the way. That would probably be the most interesting fight, though. Molina, probably more durable than David Price, but he obviously doesn't hit as hard as David Price. And, with David Price, as you said, marketability, they're going to sell the sparring rumor. Obviously, I was on Bayloric, and he said there was David Price knocked out Anthony Joshua in the pros before the Matt Legg fight. So, there is that as well. I don't know if he's knocked him out twice or once. And, they're going to, Sky and Eddie Hearn are going to sell that, David Price can knock out anyone. And he can because he's a big puncher. But, realistically, David Price's chin is made of paper mache. So, it probably will be Price just because he's been ticking over. He's been in the gym. He's had a few sort of knockover job fights. So I'd assume it'd be David Price because Molina hasn't really fought since the Thomas Ademic fight. So, yeah.
Good stuff. Tom, we'll come to your take for Joshua opponents in a second. But first and foremost, you were someone who were beginning to buy into the idea that Joshua would fight Klitschko this year. Are you now thinking there's a chance that he will fight Klitschko in 2017, or do you agree with Jet and I that there's no way a fight of that magnitude will be made when Joshua's got another fight in between?
I consider myself an arch cynic, so I'm surprised I fell for all the shite. I should have known better. Do I think the cynic in me now thinks that it was all. I think it was more cynical than I even gave for. Like a lot of times when the say for example Eddie Hearn knew on the grapevine that something was wrong with Tyson Fury long before that thing happened. He always said he doesn't think that fight going to happen. And I reckon, you can imagine you've got fighters sparring here and there, and they'll have spies in different camps. I'd say they knew fine well there was something up with Klitschko. And they decided to make some steam out of it while they could. And also the fact that they were going to get it sanctioned by another crowd, it did seem a bit unlikely. So I reckon it was probably all a big just hype smoke screen. Like I did say that like about a month ago, I didn't think that the 26th would happen, and that's not happening now. Will the December one happen? I don't know. If it's David Price, that is, like I was saying before, it's like the second coming of Mike Tyson versus the heavyweight with the worst chin in 20 years. So like it is a god-awful fight. And I don't care how much you stack that undercard. You have to stack that with a proper world title fight, not just...
What, for AJ Price? For AJ Price, do you mean?
Sorry? Yeah. Like, I don't know what world title...
That will sell massively, surely.
I think it's a dangerous one because I think if they sell it, it'll just be... That'll be 2 or 3 fights in a row where AJ has fought spanners. And he's going to just like he's taking the piss, and everybody know all these other fights aren't happening.
Yeah, but I mean,
like let's just say
the pay-per-view sales, Price has got to be one of the top opponents out there, surely.
I don't know. Like I think how are they going to sell that? If a guy's been knocked out 3 or 4 times in his last fights, like let's look at the IBF heavyweight rankings. Okay, so here's our people that he could fight if he wanted to. Okay, Kubrat Pulev, David Haye, Johan Duhaupas, Carlos Takam, Eric Molina, Jarrell Miller, Derek Chisora, David Price, Ogogo, and Hughie Fury, and Erkin Tepper. Right? Like, he's probably picking the 2 worst ones there in, what do you call him, Molina and... Maybe Chisora is on the same level, but he's basically picking the worst ones that he can pick out of all of them. So, like, that David Haye fight could be made in the morning. It could be. And it's not like that Eddie Hearn is waiting until next summer to do the David Haye fight, because he's not. He's got no interest in doing it. Did you hear what David Haye said during the week, or your man Eddie Hearn said, Eddie the Envelope said during the week, that the AJ versus Tony Bellew is a final eliminator for his IBF title for Joshua. Do you ever hear such bullshit in all your life? That fight, so the David Haye fight is not going to happen. That will never happen. So basically, we're being given, like, there's loads of good fights that could be made there. He won't go near Jarrell Miller, he won't go near Hughie Fury. Well, maybe he will go near Hughie Fury, but the money he's offering doesn't seem to work. So I just think I think it's a total shit show. And maybe Joshua will fight Klitschko in the summer. That could happen in the summer. But I'm telling you, I bet you it'll happen in Germany.
Yeah. They were talking about having it at the Millennium Stadium, mate. You don't think that's going to happen?
When?
What, in spring?
I doubt it. Like, has there ever been a boxing match there before? And in the spring, has there ever been like a major stadium event in the UK during the spring?
Not to my knowledge. I guess Millennium Stadium's got a roof, does it?
I know, but it's probably still fairly cold. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's boxers. There's a lot of waiting around in the ring and all that at the start. So I don't know. I'm really annoyed with the whole thing, to be honest with you, because I didn't think he was taking the piss. Unlike all the guys in chat, I didn't think he was taking the piss. But Eddie Hearn is a scumbag.
Say what you really think, Tom. So who do you think it will actually end up being then?
Oh God, I don't know if he's got the balls to put on David Price, because David Price will get slated right across the press, and I think David Price is no good, unfortunately. So maybe it'll sell, but he could come to regret it. You know, you can burn your fans by giving them shit shows too often. You know, I don't know, but, you know, he's learned from his father. You got Chris Eubank fighting nobodies for 20 years. So we'll see. I think I prefer to see Molina, to be honest with you, because Molina could give it a go. Christ, I would like to see Molina win. I don't think I'd like to see David Price win, because it'd be great to see AJ Hype Train fall apart, but not to David Price.
Not to David Price.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, so yeah, Molina and Price seems to be where it's at. So hopefully, by the time we go live next Wednesday, we'll have one of those confirmed.
What, like, why can't he fight? He doesn't have to fight a voluntary title fight, doesn't he? He doesn't have to fight for.
Yeah, you're right.
He could fight a non-title fight. Yeah, and he could fight the Cuban lad. What do you call him?
You're not saying Luis Ortiz, are you?
Wait, yeah. Let's just talk about fights that can be made. Luis Ortiz. He's the same promotional thing. Eddie Hearn loves doing two guys fighting the same promotional thing because he'll keep the money in house, but he won't put him in that. There's loads of fight he can make.
No, but to be honest, you cannot blame Eddie Hearn for not sticking him in with Luis Ortiz. I mean, yeah.
Well, who's more dangerous, Luis Ortiz or Klitschko?
I don't believe that Klitschko fight was ever going to happen, though, mate.
Yeah, so like all this shit, like, you know, boys, we'll probably be here for 2 years saying, oh, it'll be because Tyson Fury's not there, and it'll be Klitschko's retired, and then David Hayes too old, and then it'll be somebody else is on, Hughie Fury will be on the wrong thing, and we'll never get, and Wilder wants to fight in America, and we won't have any of these fucking fights, and he's going to fight bum after fucking bum after bum. Like, I'm just coming, at the moment, I'm just like, I feel like we're never going to get those things. He's going to do what Kell Brook did. He's going to sit there, do his voluntaries, then do his mandatories. The mandatories are going to be shit. We're going to get as good a fight as we can hope for. It'll probably end up being Kubrat Pulev.
Talk about anger from Irish Tom.
Yeah, I am. I'm pissed off about it. I'm sick because all we get is AJ this. We spend so much fucking time talking about who he's going to fight and all this. We probably won't. I wouldn't be even surprised if the December 10th thing doesn't even happen. I wouldn't be surprised.
Wow. I mean, it looks like they're having problems making White Chisora, so surely they've got to have Joshua out. I mean, it would be a disaster for their business not to have a fight with AJ, surely.
Well, like, maybe, but like the thing is, I was thinking about like with AJ. I heard was that at the moment between Molina and Price, Eddie Hearn is trying to see which of them will fight for less money, and that's what's delaying it. You know, so we'll see how much. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody like Molina ends up fighting for $200,000.
Yeah, I mean, Molina will probably be cheaper, but Price will probably bring in more pay-per-view buys.
Do you think he will? I don't know if he will. I don't know. I just see this one as a particularly hard one to market. And the other thing you were saying is that Joshua wouldn't get the recognition if he bet Klitschko. I think that's wrong. I think he would get tons of it. And why would he get tons of it? Because he'll have Eddie Hearn and he'll have the Sky Hype machine behind him, and they'll make it out like it's the greatest result of all time. So I think that like he would get the benefit if it was Klitschko. The other thing that annoys me is that when Eddie Hearn will say something like Ortiz, you know, but nobody knows him, you know, it's a tough sell. Eddie Hearn he's a really good salesman. He's able to sell fucking, you know, shit to dung beetle. Like the guy can sell, and so he can sell whatever hell he wants. So he's making the decision not to go for Hay or not to go for these boys or to Ortiz. There's no fight he won't sell. He was able to fight Brazil, able to sell Brazil. He was able to sell Charles Martin. He was able to sell Dillian White. You know, he's able to sell all these as pay-per-view. There's no any of this bullshit where he can't sell this guy or that guy. It's horseshit. He can sell whoever he wants to sell. He's got the platform. I just feel like we're not going to get anything any decent from AJ anytime soon. And he's just going to sit there and milk him because he's not putting him in. There's so many available people he could put him in with. Any of the good ones. The only one that was half decent he tried to come in with was Kubrat Pulev. Pulev didn't want it. Maybe he was being lowballed for money. But this is the situation AJ's in. If he is the cash cow and British boxing is on this amazing high that Eddie's talking about, and he's a pay-per-view star and all this, he's got to pay the opposition. You got to pay the opposition. When people fight Canelo and these boys, you know, maybe not with Floyd, but with Canelo and these boys, they tend to get 20%, 25%. I don't think these boys are getting 25% of what AJ's on.
No, and I still remember back to when AJ was first launching on pay-per-view, and I made this comment at the time. Someone leaked that Joshua got £3 million and White got £500,000 for the AJ White fight. And then it got leaked that Charles Martin and AJ made several million each for their fight. And I remember saying at the time, this is going to cause a problem. Because if heavyweight boxers hear that Dillian White got £500,000 for a title fight, a British title fight, and Charles Martin got several million for their fight, people aren't going to want to fly over 300 grand or 400 grand. They're going to think they can hold out for a lot more.
Yeah, and I think that's the situation he's in now. Like if AJ is going to be, say if there's a £6 million pot for these fights now, and AJ is going to be taking 5.5 million, 100,000, they're going to say, fuck that. What am I going to go over there and take a loss? Because unless I knock him out, I'm not going to win on points. So they had to knock out AJ. And he's certainly, and he's not looking for guys that could actually knock him out. You know? Why not put him in with Duhopa? He's top 5. You know? And he's got a punch and he's got a chin. Why not put him in with him? You know, there's fellas in there that he could put him in with that are not being mentioned. Don't have any fights lined up. I haven't heard Carlos Takam being lined up with anybody. I haven't heard.
Takam's fighting Duhopa, I believe, mate.
Who, Takam is?
Yeah, I believe so.
Oh, sorry. I didn't hear that one. Yeah, but like, you know, these negotiations have been going on for a long time. I don't know when. But like, I just hope he puts me with Jarrell Miller sometime and Miller just knocks his block off.
That would be an interesting fight, nevertheless. But anyway, we spent enough time on Joshua because in all likelihood, we're going to be discussing him again on next week's show when the fight is actually announced. Realistically, it's got to be announced next week or else it'll be 5 weeks' notice, which is borderline too short for a fight of this magnitude. So let's go on to some of the fights that have been announced this week. Jet, we'll start with you, and I'm going to read out a list. Kaliafai versus Concepcion, Degale versus Badijak, Broner versus Granados, Frampton versus Luis Santa Cruz de Rematz, Zlatikanen versus Mikey Garcia, and additionally, a date has been put down for Danny Garcia versus Keith Thurman should Danny Garcia get through his next fight. A huge amount of fights made yet. All of them, you know, a lot of them under that PBC banner, but some real big name matchups there. What is particularly getting your pulse racing? You there, Jet? You're on mute, mate.
Hello.
Okay,
I'm back. Yeah, the Santa Cruz Frampton fight is a good one. Great advert for boxing. You know, the first fight was a top fight, and looking forward to the rematch. Zlatikanen versus Garcia. That'll be a highly skilled fight as well. Another good fight. Obviously, you know, people have their sort of Garcia and whatnot. He's not someone I particularly like, but that's another good fight. Him and Keith Thurman. I think they said in March sometime. So that's another good fight. Pick Thurman in that fight. Pick Frampton in his fight. Yafai, I'd pick him in his fight December 10th. Broner versus Granados. Broner wins that if he can, you know, obviously if he can make weight comfortably and that sort of stuff. You know, there's some Zlatikanen versus Garcia. I'm going to reserve judgment on that because that's a tough fight to pick. But some excellent fights, fantastic fights for boxing. I mean, you know, things are looking up with those fights. You know, we haven't really got the end of the 16 apart from maybe Ward Kovalev. We haven't got the massive mega fights, and those are some top fights in the sport. Looking forward to them in early 2017.
Definitely. What about Garcia Thurman? Do you believe that that's actually going to happen?
Well, they've obviously said if Garcia comes through his non-title fight and he wins, he's obviously in line to face Keith Thurman next. You know, there's potential that could probably end up, you know, not happening or whatnot. But I mean, I don't know. Garcia, even if he does fight him, he could get a gift decision. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him, getting probably losing the majority of the fight and getting a dodgy decision. So I wouldn't put that out of the question, certainly. But yeah, at the moment, it is touch and go if the fight will happen. But obviously they've tried to announce it. They haven't put a provision. So let's see if it happens. Let's be optimistic. But you never know with Danny, not Swift, but Cherry Garcia. You don't know with him.
That's a super fight, though, isn't it? I mean, by the time that comes around, that will be. I think that's bigger than Thurman Porter.
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely it is, because obviously Garcia's undefeated and that sort of stuff, and he's obviously been unified light welterweight champion as well. But it's not for me. I think Keith Thurman wins that fight. He can box from the outside as well, and I think he wins that fight with a bit of ease. I'll be honest. Garcia doesn't look good for me at welterweight. I think he looks pretty small as well. But not that I think Keith Thurman's excellent either. But I think his power's a bit overrated, and but I think he can box and win the fight. But it is a big fight for the welterweight division, and it gives a good advert for the division as well. Obviously, there's other names like Spence and maybe Brook coming back down, Khan's still there, so there are still Pacquiao, Jesse Vargas in a few weeks as well. So there are still names at the division, but it's a very good fight for the division.
What about Granados? I haven't actually seen much of him, but I've heard the name a few times before. Is he a threat to Adrian Broner?
I mean, Granados, he faced Amir Imam, if you know him. He was a prospect, 140 prospect. And he brutally, in the later rounds, he was bruising Imam really, really badly. He got, I think he got knocked down. I'm not sure in the early round, or one of the early rounds. And he came back and, he pummeled Imam bad in that fight, to be fair. So, for me, I don't know if it's at 140 or 147. I know, there's been some rumours that Broner's obviously moving on to 147, can't make 140. But, and obviously they've said Ricky Burns maybe in the, later on in the year, which is something they said in December time. But obviously Granados, that they're saying February time, Broner, Granados, sorry. So, for me, he's not Broner's quite big as well at 140 in terms of frame. And I just think he can box, he'll box on the outside, be very low output against Granados. But, Granados could very well nick some rounds, but, probably end up coming, substantially short on the scorecards as well. But, he's not a bad fighter. He's got a few losses on his record, but he's a sort of small pressure fighter that comes forward, and he could take a shot as well as he can give it, dish it out as well.
Absolutely. Well, an exciting program of fights, definitely. Tom, any of those stick out for you? I must admit, Degale Badu Jack is one that I'm keen to see. Garcia Thurman, definitely. Zlatan, Mikey Garcia. Real exciting program ahead, surely.
It is great, but that means there's no fights until next year, and there's been very little from the PBC / this autumn. So it's a bit of a gap, to be honest. But they are very good fights. Let me have a look just again. Degale Badu Jack, a good fight. I don't think it's any more than a good fight in maybe the weakest division in boxing. Danny Garcia versus Thurman. That's an excellent fight. I hope to see Thurman give him a beating. We got the Frampton Santa Cruz rematch. I don't know if I really I'm looking forward to that fight. I don't see it going any different way. And then probably my favorite one is Latikanen versus Garcia. That's the one I'm looking out for most, to be honest with you. What happened to Broner versus Burns?
Yeah, I don't actually know what officially happened to that, but it certainly hasn't been confirmed. Jet, I don't know if you've got the inside track, mate.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard anything. Obviously, they've said since he won the Relic fight, they said that's a done deal in December. So I was quite confused as to why the Broner Granados fight was made in February. That fight might come, sort of May time, I think, possibly April, May time. I think that they're probably going to go for fight, and obviously if Broner can stay at 140. But I haven't heard anything in regards to why Burns isn't going to be fighting Broner next. Maybe he wants a tune-up or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess maybe Broner, obviously he's been in jail, hasn't he? So
yeah, in and out of jail as well.
What about Badu Jack Degale? Is that neither of you seem to be overly hyped by that one?
Oh no, I forgot that one. I just forgot that one briefly. I mean, for me, I know people have been going back and forth, and people seem to think Jack's got a massive chance of winning. I think he's got a solid chance, but I think Degale's going to be too elusive. He shows too many angles. You know, his inside game is very, very good. He can box a bit from range as well. And I think he's just ultimately, you know, going to have a bit too much for Badu Jack on the night. And I think he's going to win, you know, a close and competitive fight. I think it's going to be quite close. But I think Degale should run out, you know, the worthy winner. But, you know, Jack, is a good body puncher. And, you know, I don't know if it's Degale taking rounds off because he's, you know, not conditioned very well, or he just loses focus or whatever. But, you know, that body punching could be a useful tool, a very, very useful tool for Badu Jack come, you know, the unification fight.
What do you call it? I saw the IFL interview with Degale today, and fair play to Degale. He's one of those few fighters that wants to actually fight all the top guys and is not full of shit.
Yeah.
You know, he's seeking out the good fights. And I must say, I'm watching the IFL interview, and I go on. I say this a lot, but like, I don't know. It feels like Coogan is a bit in Eddie Hearn's pocket. The way he's saying, "Oh, what about your your profile and everything? You know, has gone down since you've moved to your man Al Heyman." But like, this is kind of, to me, this is such bullshit. Like the US market is literally 6 times bigger than the UK market. So if you're fighting once a year or twice a year in America or twice a year over in the UK, you're going to be way more exposed over there. And like the US fighters and the fans know who he is now. You know what I mean? A lot of these people, you know, wouldn't know who he was if he had stayed in England. You know, it's just another kind of a British fighter unless you're a hardcore helmet. So like, I think James Degale has made the most of his career, and I hope he fights. I hope he beats Jack, and then he's saying he wants to fight Ramirez, and that'd be a good fight too. I'd like to see James Degale. I hope he wins, because he's the type of fighter I think that'll actually try and take on all the people and try and do the best he can. We need more fighters like James Degale.
Definitely. He's a good fighter to watch in the ring as well. I saw some big names. He was talking Golovkin, Eubank Jr., Groves, Adonis Stevenson. You know, there's some big fights for him out there. Also, crazy to believe he's 30 years old. It seems like yesterday he was winning the Olympics, you know, as a youngster. You know, that was quite a good interview, I thought, from Degale. He's not the most articulate bloke, Degale, but he's coming across a lot better now than he used to, I think.
Yeah, I think he loses his head. Like, I think he's like, you know, George Groves irritated him, you know. You know, I imagine
he used to call him ugly kid and that sort of stuff. He
wound
him up bad, yeah.
He didn't come across well, you know. But I think he's probably a lot better than he's probably a lot nicer fella than George Groves is. When we look at how loyal he's been to his coach and all that, and you see what George Groves is throwing people under the bus left, right, and centre. So, I hope Degale does well. I like Degale. I think he's a clean fighter. And he's got balls. He's doing it. Remember, he's doing it the hard way. He's going on the road and he's doing it like, you know, it's in the line of these guys like Ricky Hatton and Amir Khan, who went off to America to actually fight the best guys, as opposed to staying at home and talking a big game. So, yeah, fair play to him.
Good stuff. Yeah, good stuff. There was another bit of news that I'd written down to discuss, and I don't know if you guys have seen this. But substantial and recurring rumours that Tyson Fury will go on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. As boxing fans, as Fury fans, Tom, let's start with you. Is that something you would want to see? Do you think it would be good television? Or do you think it could cause a lot of damage to him as an individual and potentially to the sport?
I imagine it's just, I would not watch it. I don't watch I'm a Celebrity, Brother, Get Me Out of Here, whatever the hell it's called. I don't even have a television, so I wouldn't watch it. But look, if you've got a manic depressive and he's in and you know, what's the last thing a manic depressive needs to go doing? It's going doing fucking I'm Celebrity. You know, it's just nonsense. Like, you know, the other thing is with Tyson, you know what Tyson's like. He'll say whatever the hell he wants. There's no editing or anything going on. He's bound to say enough offensive things that he'll get kicked off, you know, or he'll annoy more people. I just, you know, but the thing is, Tyson, people will see Tyson for what I think he is. He's a nice guy in reality, but he probably has got a motor mouth, you know, but there are normal, nice people you meet every day in your life who say kind of stupid things or say things that you find offensive and that, but they don't mean them in a bad way or they're ill-informed. I think Tyson's just like one of those people. So maybe to go well, but look, it's just, I want to see him in the boxing ring. I don't want to see him there. I think it's very exploitative by people in the media if they know a guy's got mental health issues and he has got bipolar and they're just trying to get him in there for ratings. That I kind of find pretty fucking reprehensible, to be honest with you. But Lord knows that's the media for you.
I do wonder, you know, it's a huge gamble. There's been a lot of boxers going on these shows and it's ended terribly. You know, I remember Evander Holyfield on Big Brother and it really being hard to watch. But at the same time, there's other boxers who are a bit more media savvy and it's gone really well. Notable examples being David Haye and Chris Eubank Sr. on the same programme, which is I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. You know, Tyson Fury, I know he's a bit of a motor mouth. I know he's got the propensity to say very offensive things. But I've always thought he comes across like quite a genuine and likeable guy. Is there a small chance, Tom, he could go on a show like this and completely reverse perceptions and generate a huge public support?
No, I think there's a large chance he could do that. But the other thing as well is that, like, you know, Tyson, if he's got mental health problems, he could also go into, you know, a manic state. Yeah? He could become depressed. He could become suicidal, or he could become, you know, go on a high and start doing crazy stuff and just talking crazy shit. You know, if you see somebody just walking down the street and they've got manic depression and they're on a high and they're going down the street talking about how they're Jesus and this, that, and the other, and they could be saying any kind of shit. Like, and it mightn't represent what they actually think themselves. You know, so, you know, they just spew nonsense. So it's like, it's just a very risky thing. And if he does have, and if he's after having like a manic episode, I do think the last place you want to be is going on front of national television, like, for how long is it? It could be 8 weeks or something like that. Could it be
3 or 4 weeks? Certainly, yeah.
3 or 4 weeks. Yeah, I don't know how. I don't watch it. So, like, I don't know. It's a very risky one. But I think there's a very good chance he could actually become a very, very popular guy from it. But there's also the chance it could go terribly, terribly wrong. And the place I want to see him is boxing. I don't want to see him on some bullshit on the telly. You know what I mean? I don't like these, you know, these are for old women and young children. That sounds very sexist. It's for people with nothing better to do with their times.
I think there's also a lot of cynics out there who don't believe that Tyson Fury, and you know, this might be an unpopular thing I'm about to say, but you know, I talk a lot about Tyson Fury and I get a lot of comments on Tyson Fury, and I'm gonna say it as it is. And there's a lot of people out there who believe that Tyson Fury doesn't have mental health problems and who has used that as an excuse to explain failed drug tests, both of the recreational and performance-enhancing drug variety. And those cynics are now of the mind that if he goes on a show like this, it's kind of highlighting the fact that actually he, you know, doesn't have those health problems whatsoever. Now, I don't know whether that's the case or not, but it seems that every move Tyson Fury makes is surrounded in controversy, and I'm sure it will lead to far more debates of that nature if he were to go on a program of this nature. But he'll have been advised on that, I presume.
Yeah, by whatever alternative personality is sitting on his shoulder at the time. But we shouldn't take the piss out of his mental health issues. But the one thing though that I would like to see if they do put him on there is that it's inevitable they're going to have to put him in the ring with a kangaroo and have a boxing match. That shit though I would watch.
Yeah, definitely. Let's get an alternative view on this. I can't make up my mind here, mate. Part of me doesn't want to see it. Mikey says in the chat, Tyson Fury has mental issues, end of. He needs support, and it's a bad idea going on a show like that. That's a good thing from Mikey. That's sense from Mikey. At the same time, I'm going to be honest. If that was on TV, would I watch it? I'm sorry. Yes, I would. Where do you stand on that, Jet?
Gossip. You'd also watch Golovkin versus Brook.
you were pumped for that one as well, mate.
I fucking was pumped for it to be finished. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah,
Jet, go ahead, mate.
No worries. Yeah, I mean, it is one of those ones. It's kind of in the middle. If he goes on to the show, I guess he could get, he could maybe get his side of the story out, and with the cocaine, that sort of stuff, all that good stuff. But then on the flip side, you can say, well, why is he going on this sort of show when he should be focusing on his health and getting healthy first, then getting back in the ring. That is his main sort of thing. He has kids, he has a wife, so he should be focusing on himself. So it is a bit of a catch-22 for Tyson Fury, and especially the fans, because loads of the fans want to see Tyson Fury back in the ring, or they want to see Tyson Fury back in, they just want to see him because he's a personable sort of person. He's an entertaining character. He's value for money. So I can understand both points of view, but would I watch it? I probably would, but do I really want to see it deep down? Probably not. I want to see the guy get better and try and focus on himself and really get back to full health. And I want to see him in the boxing ring. I don't want to more than anything, I want to see him get better, because health, especially for a boxer, when you're taking punches for a living, health is wealth, and you want to see someone like him really maximize sort of his earning potential and show us what he's made of, especially with the Klitschko win. We haven't seen anything after that, so yeah, hopefully he gets back into the ring and he gets better soon as well.
Yeah, and Jet, what did you make of this WBO situation where they've kind of put him in a position where he can automatically challenge for the title if he returns?
Yeah, I mean, Vitaly Klitschko had it when he sort of vacated his belt, didn't he?
Yes.
When he was sort of champion in recess. I've never known any other sanctioning body to do it, so WBO doing it is kind of unprecedented. But yeah, good on him, I guess. At least he gets to fight for one of his belts that were rightfully his. I know, obviously, Parker Ruiz are fighting for the vacant WBO heavyweight title. Apparently, he's actually going to the States because of a funding issue, sort of New Zealand. So yeah, that's a fight. Obviously, David Haye is supposed to fight the winner in 120 days. He's mandated to face the winner, which I think will be Parker. So it is a bit weird. As I said, Tyson Fury, he obviously opened the division up. Now he's open up the division even more by vacating the belts. Obviously he was forced to vacate one of his belts or get stripped of it, the IBF title that allowed Joshua to win the title. Now Joshua's a world champion, and Klitschko's injured now. Deontay Wilder's also injured, so there's a lot of scope for a lot of people that wouldn't get these otherwise. Now they're getting a lot of opportunities. Lucas Brown's obviously got a quicker opportunity to get a world title now, or to regain a version of a world title. Deontay Wilder will come back. Povetkin and Stiverne are fighting for the interim title. There's a lot of things going on in the heavyweight division, but is it a lot of it's to do with Tyson Fury, and maybe him going away for this part of time is good in a way, especially for him and the division. He can come back and win the belts depending on who's the champions. And maybe it's a good thing that he's sort of the champion in recess, or the automatic sort of thing where a WBO. Maybe it's something of some note.
Yeah, and one other sort of side note, shout out to all the Kiwis. I can see there's a few Kiwis in the chat tonight, and appreciate all the support. But for you Joseph Parker fans out there, what a 6 to 9 month period Joseph Parker could potentially be having. Now, I say potentially because this is boxing and fights don't tend to get made. But we could have Parker versus Ruiz in December, the winner of that fight having to fight David Haye within 120 days, and the winner of that fight having to fight a returning Tyson Fury. What a period that could be for Joseph Parker and his team around him. Tom, how do you think the whole WBO situation will play out?
Oh, I have no idea. David Hayes got his money bags out. It's been stuff like, how high is he? He's high in all of these. I tell you, what happens if you become, say, a champion in the WBO? Do you still maintain your mandatory in the IBF?
No, that don't happen.
Do you lose your
rank by other sanctioning bodies?
You totally lose your rankings in other sanctioned bodies once you become champion.
All of them. Yeah.
So we don't know who Joshua's mandatory would be. Maybe Pulev.
Yeah, maybe Pulev. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, look, yeah, David Haye against Joshua would be a good fight. Parker would be a good fight. Who knows? They might make Tyson Fury. So I don't know. Look at this heavyweight stuff. It's just pissing me off, lads, to be honest with you. It's all like we've been talking about fights that could be made for how many months now? When was the last time we actually had
on one tonight? He's on one tonight.
Yeah, it's like
angry.
It's about 3 or 4 months since we had a title fight, and we're talking about all these things that could happen, and they probably won't happen till fucking next year. It's like, I've had enough of it.
Irish Tom, you're certainly on one tonight. You're very heated and emotional and angry.
You see, the problem is, lads, is that it's just me and you, Jet, and Gossip. So we have to keep talking.
We have to keep throwing you on. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So I'm just like, and we're getting more and more irate as we think of all the fights that aren't happening. How long we have to wait. The fights we're talking about happening on tonight's show are in like January and February. Like, there's no fights this weekend. We've got nothing to talk about. When is the next fights coming up that decent fights? Is it Andre Ward?
Pacquiao, mate.
Yeah, Pacquiao.
Oh, Pacquiao on the 9th. Pacquiao on the 9th.
And then the November 12th bill, Monte Carlo.
But that's not even... But like, they're not even... Like, the Manny Pacquiao is not even a fight that we're looking forward to.
No.
So it's like...
5th of November, actually, Gossip. You're wrong there, mate.
Gossip, that was me. I said the 9th. But, and then we got Monte Carlo on the 12th.
You're wrong.
So,
Yeah.
So we've got nothing to look forward to, and all we got is all this bullshit politics, fucking lying promoters, scheming bastards, the whole lot of them.
Did you see that Martin Murray Abraham's off, Tom?
Didn't see that, no. Why?
Yeah.
Why is that off?
Abraham's withdrawn injured.
Okay. He's not injured, apparently. Apparently, Murray's tweeted out he's not injured, and WBO have ordered a eliminator of some sorts for Abraham Kresnicki. So, yeah, make of that what you will.
And what was Abraham versus Murray? Was that
was supposed to be
WBA?
for some WBO. I thought it was a WBO Intercontinental. It was like a eliminator. So like obviously you fight belts and then it's an eliminator somewhat. But you know, apparently now they've come out and said Kresnicki is fighting with him and Abraham. But Kresnicki's had opportunity. He's awful. Yeah.
Well, so is Martin Murray.
Well, Murray's better than Kresnicki, I guess, in that way. It's not a fight I wanted to see, but, you know, Kresnicki's lost to Braemar, he's lost to Cleverly badly. He got scored 12-0 by Cleverly probably as well. So, you know, I really want to see Kresnicki fight, you know, top-level guys, I guess.
I hear you.
There we go. Guys, it's a bit of an odd show today with all of the bizarre technical difficulties. We've got through it all, not as long as we normally do, but the reason we've got through it a bit quicker is largely because there's no fights of any note to talk about this weekend, which is usually what we spend the last 30 minutes of the show focused on. So I'll throw it out to you. Is either of you got anything else you want to throw into the mix about anything else?
Do we have any Ogogo news?
You know what? I didn't specifically prepare an Agogo segment today. because we actually discussed him in the first section to the show. He's been very quiet, hasn't he, since his loss? Joking apart, and I've been one of his harshest critics, but the guy probably doesn't have a future in the boxing ring. But I hope he is all right. He's like a decent guy.
He can carry on with his WWE analysis or something like that, or Dancing with the Stars or something like that. So
yeah,
avenue for Agogo.
Well, my commentary seems to go down fairly well, even if I do say so myself. We got about 2,000 views, and people seem to like it. We had a similar sort of number of people watching live as on the podcast. So I'm going to try and do that again. Maybe one of you guys could join me. You could be the Adam Smith, and I can be Jim Watt.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I'll be Carl Froch and just keep. Again.
I could be Paul Smith.
Yeah. I'll be Carl Froch and I'll be saying, "Oh yeah, look, I know he's not hitting them, but he's coming forward and he is getting hit, but he's throwing more punches. Now they may be missing, but I still feel like he should get the round." That's what Carl Froch says every time.
And he has the guy winning by seven points when he should be winning by like 1.
Yeah. He had Carl Frampton 6-0 up, and then he gave it 7-5 to Quigg at the end.
Oh, gosh.
Dear. Yeah. I've got another question for you just before we wrap it up. There's been a lot of impressions going around lately. Eddie Hearn doing impressions. Jim McDonnell. Jet, I hear you do some very good impressions, mate. Have you got any you'd like to share with the podcast viewers?
Of who? I don't.
People within the boxing world.
Huh? Anyone in the boxing world? I don't think I do any good impressions. So.
Can you do how did you hear this gossip?
It's been all over IFL TV.
Yeah.
No, I mean about Jet.
I just decided to call him out on it, mate. I've got no
evidence whatsoever.
No evidence whatsoever.
I must give it to Eddie Hearn. He does do some good impressions. I gotta give it to him.
The Chris Eubanks here is hilarious.
It is good, and his other one, he did a very good one too of Kell Brook. That was pretty good.
Irish Tom, we're gonna have to call out gossip and do an impression of him, but it's unfortunately he has a generic voice. So.
No, he doesn't. There's lots of gossip. Gossip is a impersonator's dream.
I say a lot of words. I'm told the words I say too many are fundamentally and absolutely.
Yeah, and do you know what you also say? When it makes you sound like my mother, is you say after somebody says something on the podcast, you say, "This is it. This is it."
This is it.
Yeah. It's such an Irish one. Your mother must say that or some gossip. My mother says that. Every time he says it, I go, Jesus, he sounds like my mother.
Oh, dear.
Between Vlad looking like my brother and gossip sounding like my mother.
There we go.
What's left?
I'm just trying to think. My favourite one, and don't get me wrong, I can't do the voice. My voice is, Team Grove says, BG says world-class operator a lot. I do say operator a lot. And Mikey says I say momentum is key, which I do.
Yeah.
So, you guys know better than I do.
No, I know what he says, lads. This is the key one. Gossip starts a sentence like this. He says, "Whilst I'm saying he is a good technician, I am not saying so. It's whilst. Listen to how many times Gossip says whilst in a video.
Do you know my favorite?
You never see it on the.
I could never do his voice, so I'm not going to attempt to, especially struggling with this cold. But my favourite one for phrases has to be John Fury.
Brilliant. Like he is a maniac.
Real fighting men.
Yeah.
Gloucester man. Real men. Real food.
I know, it's real everything.
There isn't a man born from his mother.
Yeah, and he says stuff like, not these fake, he's always saying fake plastic people. You know, he is a character, man. I would like to meet him. But he's like one of those guys, I'd say, if you actually try to talk to him, that you wouldn't be able to have a conversation with him. Because he'd just be shouting in your face constantly. I'm bad enough. John Fury's like me on steroids.
Oh, I can kind of hear Jet in the background there.
He's probably just knocking one
I assume he's on the mobile phone or something.
Yeah, I'm on my phone. Yeah, mate.
Are you actually there?
Sorry?
Someone must have the podcast playing in the background or something.
Yeah,
No,
that's not me. Yeah, that's definitely not me.
Not? Oh, sorry, it was me. After all that, apologies, Jet. What it was is it was you who was speaking when I was playing it, so that's why I was getting very confused.
Gossip, you're having a mess.
Yeah, Jet.
It's not been a vintage. You know, my presenting tonight has been 4 out of 10 at best. So yeah, apologies, people.
Mikey in the chat says that Jet is actually knocking one out over Kelly Maloney.
Mikey is a character. Let's put it that way. And on that note,
yes,
I think Gossip has another classic line as well. And on that note,
guys, just wanted to, before we go, I wanted to give a quick shout out to someone who I'm hugely indebted to, which is my good friend Nathan, who a lot of you guys will know who Nathan is because of how active he is on social media and stuff. But Nathan has created the Boxing Gossip Facebook page. Check that out, and he shares all my videos and puts them on all the Facebook groups. So if you're watching, Nathan, much appreciated, mate. Huge shout out to you, guys. Anything else before we hit the road for the night?
I can't think of anything.
Nah, not from me.
I'm dying here. I feel like I'm going to collapse, so I'm going to call it an early night. Guys, thanks for giving up your Wednesday evenings to Jet and to Tom. I'm sure Paul will be back with us next week, and maybe Sherry as well. So we'll have a bigger panel next week. But thanks to everyone who's watched live. Really appreciate everyone who's spent their evenings with us. I hope everyone has a good evening, and I'll catch up with you all soon. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Take care, guys. Bye.